Hey guys, welcome back to the Diet Doc Life Mastery Podcast. I'm Joe Klemczewski, founder of the Diet Doc and co-founder of the National Academy of Metabolic Science, which we need to talk about again soon, Kori. And I'm here with Dr. Kori Propst, our health psychologist. Hey, Kori.
Hi, good morning.
And
Wherever people are listening.
Exactly. We're kind of splitting the country here, so we're always in different time zones. But today we're going to finish the series. We're in part 3 of how to start a diet. So the last episode, we really dove into some of the physiological changes and why it's very important, even if you're going to plan some higher carb days, higher calorie days, diet breaks, vacations, to always keep an eye on and understand what's happening physiologically, because that's where a lot of people just get some undue stress and anxiety, thinking this is too hard, I knew I was going to fail, and this is just going to end up where it always does. But if you focus on the biology of what's happening and creating some stability, it makes it so much easier. You become one of those people who just does it. You just get it done. You don't question it. You don't end up, going through all of these second guessing cycles. But today we do want to address, Kori, starting with that end in mind. We are in an industry where 95 to 98% of people who ever start a diet regain all that weight. Yeah. And statistically, I remember you sharing that after 5 years, most people who have begun a diet weigh 107% of their original weight. So we're just on this gradual climb, or you could say just walking toward the cliff and ultimately falling off. And there are some things, again, physically and psychologically that I think we can do to make sure that doesn't happen, because you and I do experience an awful lot of success stories. We see people who finally get there, and to say it's life-changing is quite an understatement.
Yeah, who finally get there and finally are able to stay there. If that's like, I'm into mindfulness and like nothing is permanent, right? Nothing is permanent. Everything changes. I stop myself in my tracks right there. But who have developed the skills, the capacities, and a mindset that allows them to stay within a small range of their weight in which they feel really good, have awesome energy, have a level of flexibility that works for them, are able to be involved in the activities of their lives that nourish them. We have had a lot of those success stories. I'm just thinking, who in their right mind would ever even read those statistics for maintenance and even think that's a smart thing to do? But it does come down to how you do it and what type of nutritional structure you're going to institute. And I think a lot of times too, who's coaching you and how they're doing it.
Right. And when I think of the people that we both personally know, clients who have been with us, they've lost 50, 60, 100 pounds, and they've kept that off, there are some definite clear common denominators. And then when I see the people who have slipped back and have gained all or most of that weight back, I think there's almost just one common denominator that is the hinge pin of everything. And it's just that they gave up. I mean, there are a lot of steps in that, but psychologically, globally speaking, for you to gain a couple pounds back and then be a little frustrated and get back on the wagon, or whatever, have that range that you discussed, that takes some work. But to just say I'm just gonna completely turn my head, gain 50 pounds back, 100 pounds back. There is something happening emotionally there. And I would love for you to describe maybe how thinking about that at the beginning when you start a diet. That's the title of the series, How to Start a Diet. How do you start working on that at the beginning, Kori, so that you're not that person at the end?
So I am working with a woman right now who I actually worked with for probably almost a couple years now. And she's lost a significant amount of weight, but has gained a significant amount back. And then she loses, and then she gains again. And there's something that we just recently came back to, which we'd done in the very beginning. And it's, can we assess the pros of healthy eating and taking care of our bodies and our minds through this process? Let's assess the pros. Let's list everything you can possibly think of, the benefits of doing this in all the context of your lives, including your relationships. And then let's address the potential cons. This is something that I don't think a lot of people consider doing, because this list of potential negatives or disadvantages of embarking on this journey, this list is where your trigger points are going to be. This list is going to give you an idea of everything that could potentially get in the way of you making the optimized decisions, especially when it's difficult, right? So we went through this process together, and I mean, again, she's been doing this for almost 3 years with me, and she was very surprised at what came up. So that, I think, is a very important piece of that starting process. Assess the pros, and we can list a ton of those. Like, there's so many reasons that, oh, I want to do this because, and it would be a great idea because, and I want to look like this, and I want to feel like this, and it would impact these relationships in a positive way. We don't want to look at the cons. How this is going to be super difficult in these ways, and this could potentially throw us off track. And these are all those emotional, adaptive elements that you talked about, Joe, that you addressed. In the research that I did for my dissertation, what I continually found with, I was interviewing individuals who had maintained their weight and who were actively losing weight. And it wasn't things like that were even necessarily related to dieting or weight loss itself. So it wasn't about tracking. It wasn't about macros. It wasn't about ordering off a menu in a restaurant. It was things like other people making comments about how they looked or what they were doing. It was, I'm in a relationship right now, and I get in an argument with my partner. What's that person? Oh, we saw it time and time again. This person goes and eats because of this fractured sense of connection with her partner or his partner. So it's, what it really a lot of times boils down to, Joe, is how do I manage the energy underneath the emotion that I experience in a way that's going to help me make wise decisions around food? Because a lot of people who gain their weight back are using food to soothe themselves as opposed to nourishing their bodies.
And I think that is what a great way to state that, to manage the energy under the emotion, if I'm quoting you correctly there, because I think physically, biologically, we miss the ball the same way. Mm-hmm. And it's probably almost equal in I mean, some people are going to have a little bit more of a fail point around psychological, emotional stress. Mm-hmm. Some people are going to around physical stress. And it makes me think on the biological side of the Stanford marshmallow study, mm-hmm. because for me personally, I'll give you an example, and I know this translates to a lot of other people. I can have all of the greatest goals in the world to sustain my weight, to be my healthiest, and mm-hmm. here's my plan. I'm doing great. Mm-hmm. And then, it's 8 o'clock at night and my stomach starts rumbling a little bit. And all of a sudden I'm grabbing the peanut butter pretzels out of the pantry. Yeah. And it's not that I'm having an emotional crisis. No. I'm just freaking hungry. And to manage the energy around that feeling of hunger physiologically mm-hmm. is something that we talked about this from the first episode in this series. the excitement, the dopamine, the thrill of improvement, that carries us so far. But once that pain is lessened a little bit about how we look and how we feel, and now we're feeling better about ourselves, we almost, as I mentioned, just take our eye off the ball, and we let those little encounters slip. And then that spirals. Then all of a sudden I start incurring some self-loathing. Now I'm getting depressed. Now I'm in a psychological state of just, fuck it. I'm just gonna be fat, I guess. This is my life.
Yeah, the what the hell effect that we talk about so often. We make one not awesome decision and we become a little bit disappointed about, the results of that decision and the feelings associated with it. And it's human nature, I think, Joe, to want to move away from that emotional discomfort. It feels very threatening. And what do we do when we experience threat? We run, we flee, we fight, or we freeze, and we can't think straight or make a wise kind of logical linear decision at that point. So for an individual embarking on this sort of goal pursuit, part of the foundation is to learn how to be more mindful. And this isn't about like thinking more. It's not about reflecting more when I say that. It's about learning how to get in touch with our bodies, because that's where the energy of emotion resides. So learning how to not necessarily label that energy as bad and awful and terrible and horrible and this shouldn't be here, and making up a really catastrophic story about it, but instead recognize it as energy. It may feel hot, it may feel cold, it's going to have some sort of sensory properties to it. And sensory properties they're more neutral. So, okay, let's use your example. You're sitting there at night and you hear your stomach rumbling. You feel it in your abdomen. And you're like, interesting. Okay, well, interesting. That's way different than, oh my God, I need to eat right now. If I don't eat right now, I'm not going to be able to sleep. And then tomorrow morning, I'm not going to be able to think straight when I get on this podcast with Kori. Like, you see how it can turn into this massive story. So on the emotional side too, let me just say that, we resist shifting our lives, trying something new, getting involved in a goal, starting a diet. We resist those sorts of things when there's no emotional investment or emotional relevance for us. So again, emotion and being with emotion becomes really, really important at the start, through the process, and then as we're transitioning into a new phase. When I made the decision that I was not going to eat animals anymore, man, was it emotion that got me to that point. And there's an intensity underneath that whole process for me right now that keeps me going, that keeps me galvanized, that keeps me wanting to learn more and understand the difference that I'm making, not just for myself, for my own health, but for the health of the planet. And I'll end this little piece with that too, is we need to be very cognizant of and assess before we start, like, how is this going to potentially impact other people? Because that connective piece, when we're doing something big and that's going to be hard, and that we're going to feel like we're splashing around and learning how to tread water sometimes, that connective, supportive, I'm not the only one involved in this, there are other people counting on me, I have a responsibility here can be incredibly galvanizing and important.
And I'm glad you came back to what I would say is kind of the grit or resilience side of this, because if I'm trying to link the psychological stress with the physiological pressure to eat, that biological urge to consume is never going to go away. I would also go back to the beginning, how to start a diet. All of those physical properties of your nutrition that helps keep everything stable and physiologically balanced, so you just don't incur a lot of hunger and swings of appetite. Those are the things you have to be ready to carry through in maintenance.
Yes.
And you know, like your example of going back to just interpreting hunger, physical hunger, as a symptom that you can step out of your head and analyze and say, well, yeah, should I be hungry? I just ate an hour ago. Do I really want this now because it's contrary to my goals? Those are things I think people just don't do, and it's easier to push away from. And it's just critical.
It's really easy to be impulsive in situations like that. What you're describing, Joe, is called cognitive reappraisal. So in a situation, how am I making sense of this? And there's the bodily part, and then there's the cognitive piece. And how do I merge both? What questions do I ask myself to give myself kind of a wider, zoomed out perspective?
All right. Well, there you guys go. We got a 3-part series on how to start a diet. And I think we covered a lot of good ground here, Kori. I'm going to be interested in the near future to talk about your vegetarianism, because that's a new spin on a couple of the podcasts we've done close to that topic. So you guys, thank you very much for watching and listening and sharing and liking and commenting and giving us great reviews on places like Apple. That definitely helps us move our content forward. And Kori, thank you. And we'll catch you guys again next time.
All right. Thanks, guys.